Hello, you're welcome back again to this YouTube channel. In this video, we'll be learning how to draft a fitted pencil skirt with a bolt contour as well as a nail contour. So there are different types of fitted pencil skirts. There is this common type that is fitted, but then the bolt area is not definite. That is, the bolt area contour is not definite. You would know once you see it. It's fitted, but then that bolt area is just there. There is no contour around the bolt area, and also around the knee area there is no definite contour. So in this video, we're drafting the other type, which has this definite bolt contour and nail contour as well. It gives the bolts a nice look, a nice shaping, and also the nail, it makes the nail looks good and well fitted. So if this is something you're interested in, if this is something you are willing to learn, then keep watching and also do not touch the dial. Also, make sure you get ready your pattern paper. You can also make use of a newspaper if you do not have the pattern paper, or you can even make use of a cardboard paper, any paper that is available to you that will be enough to accommodate the pattern of the skirt that you're about to draft at. So without much talk or further talk, let's dive right into the drafting process. Now, the first step to take is to mark out the hip line. Now, if this were to be a freehand method, we'll just go ahead and mark out 8 or 9 inches. But because this is pattern drafting, we have to be very, very precise. So when marking out the hip line, if the person is tall, you have to come down by 9 inches, mark 9 inches. If the person is of an average height, you have to mark out 8 inches. And if the person is short, you have to mark out 7 inches for the hip line. So for me, since I'm making the skirt for me, I am of the average height, so my hip line is on 8 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark out 8 inches here like this. So you can see the way the tape is being placed. So I'll just keep marking the 8 inches across like this. And then I'll bring in my rule to connect these dots to get a straight line like so. Now this line is my hip line. Now this top part is the waistline. So I'll go ahead and indicate it and write it. Next step now is to go ahead and mark out the knee length. So go ahead and measure from your waist to your nail to get your knee length. So for me, my knee length is 21 inches, which I'll go ahead and mark out. Now, to get an accurate measurement when taking your knee length measurement, you need to place your tape at the side to take the measurements, just the way it's shown on this picture displayed on the screen. After marking out my knee length, I'll go ahead and bring in my rule to connect the dots to get a straight line like this. So this line is my knee length. So moving on, the next step is to go ahead and mark out the underboard line. Now there are two methods you can use in marking out your underboard line, in getting your underboard line. You can either take the measurement by simply placing your tape from the waist to underneath the butt to get your underboard measurement as shown on the picture, or you can just go ahead and go up from the knee length by 6 inches for a very curvy person, and for an average size of butt you go up by 7 inches. Then for a tall person you go up by 8 inches. So for me, my butt is of the average size and I'm of the average height, so I'm going up by 7 inches from my knee length. So that's what I'm marking out, 7 inches. And make sure your knee length measurement is accurate if you intend on using this particular method. So now that I've marked out my underboard dots, I'll just go ahead and bring in my rule to connect the dots together like this to get a straight line. So this line represents my underboard line. So I'll just go ahead and write it out. So now that this is done, the next step is to go ahead and start marking out the round bodice measurements after dividing them by 4. So on the waistline, I'll go ahead and divide my waist circumference by 4 and I will mark it out. So my waist circumference is 32. 32 divided by 4 gives me 8, which I marked out. So I'll add 1 inch for that allowance. Now on the hip line, I'll go ahead and divide my hip circumference by 4 and mark it out. So my hip circumference measurement is 41 divided by 4 gives me 10.25, which I have marked out. Now to mark out the underbutt circumference, you have to consider the person's body or butt size. So if the person is a slim person, you have to subtract 1 or 1.25 from the hip circumference that you marked out, and then you go ahead and mark it out on the underbutt line. If the person is of the average body size or butt size, you subtract 1.5 inches. If the person is a fat person, you subtract 2 inches. And if the person is a very curvy person, that is the butt is above 50 inches, you subtract 2.5 inches from the hip line measurement that you marked out, and then you mark it out on your underbutt line. So for me, I am of the average size and my butt is of the average size, so I'll be subtracting 1.5 inches from the 10.25 inches that I marked out on the hip line. So 10.25 minus 1.5 will give me 8.75, which I'll go ahead and mark out here on the underbutt line like this. So I hope you do understand. If you still do not understand, just let me know in the comment section and I'll try as much as possible to explain to you. For the knee length circumference, you also need to subtract from what you've marked out on the hip line before you go ahead and mark it out on the knee length. So for hips below 36 inches, you subtract 1.5 inches. And for hips that ranges from 36 inches to 44 inches, you subtract 2 inches. For hips that are 45 inches above, 45 inches upward, you subtract 2 or 2.5 inches depending on how fitted you want the knee to be. So since my hip is 41 inches, meaning I'm within the range of 36 to 44 inches, I will go ahead and subtract 2 inches from what I marked out on my hip line. So 10.25 minus 2 inches gives me 8.25 inch, which I'll go ahead and mark out here on the knee length like this. So at this point, I'll go ahead and connect these dots together to get a nice curve. So please watch closely the way I placed my curve rule. So you have to place your curve rule like this to get a nice curve. So I'll just go ahead and place it nicely like so and curve it. And then I'll turn it over like this once I get to this point, and also, connect the dot to meet up with this other dot like this. And then at this point, I'll just, mark it down straight like this. So you can see I have a nice skirt curve, so I'll just blend this sharp part in. So at this point, the front pattern of the skirt is ready. So I'll go ahead and bring in my scissors and cut this out. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out. So now that this is ready, it's time to cut out the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I'll also get a clean piece of pattern paper, and I'll go ahead and just bring in my front pattern paper that I've already drafted out, and I will just go ahead and mark out these points. That is, mark out the hip line, the underbutt line, just indicates where they are, and also mark out the knee length. That way I don't need to start doing all of that again. So I'll just bring in my rule and rule these straight down like this, rule these underbutt line straight down like this, and then also rule the knee length straight down like this. So I'm just going to indicate each line so we don't get confused. So this is the hip line, and this is the waist section, the waist line. So this is the underbutt line, and then this part is the knee length. Now that we have this, we'll go over to the waistline. So to avoid any form of folding at the zip area of the skirt, I'll go ahead and go in by 1 inch on this waistline. So I'll just bring in my tape now and go in by 1 inch like this. And I'll bring in my rule and connect this to the E-line like this. Now take a look at these pictures of the center back, the underbutt precisely. You can see that each butt size has a crease, which is the part the finger emojis are pointing to. And if you notice, the bigger the butt, the deeper it is. So to make the skirt fitted at the underbutt, you will need to go in by 0.75 on the underbutt and 1 inch on the knee length for smaller and average butt size. Then for bigger butt size, you would go in by 1 inch on the underbutt line and 1.5 inch on the knee length or knee line. So since my butt is of the average size, I went in by 1 inch. I'll go ahead and bring in my rule and connect this to the E-line like this. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And I'll just cover this part to remove any sharp points. So now that this is done, I'll go ahead and go in by 1 inch on the knee length, and I'll bring in my rule and also connect like this as well. So please take note of the way my rule is being placed. So I'm going to cut out this part as well. Then at this point, I'll go ahead and start marking out my round bodice measurement. So my waist circumference divided by 4, I'll mark it out. Then I added 1 inch for that allowance. Then on the E-line, I also divided my hip circumference by 4 and mark it out. So invariably, whatever you marked out on your front pattern is what you'll be marking out on this back pattern. So whatever you have on your E-line of the front pattern is what you should also mark out on the E-line of the back pattern. And whatever you marked out on the underbutt line of the front pattern is what you also mark out on the underbutt line of the back pattern, with the tape starting from this line that was drawn out at the center back. So now that I have done this, I'll go ahead and bring in my rule and connect these dots together to, draw out a nice curve like this. So you can see the way my rule is being placed. So make sure you place your rule nicely so that you have a nice curve or shape on your pattern. So I'll just go ahead and connect this final part like this. So this is the back pattern. I'll go ahead and indicate it, write it on it. This is the back pattern. So I'll go ahead and bring in my scissors and cut this out. So watch closely the way this was cut out. So you can see me cutting out this part and also this part. So that is it. So this is the center back and this is the side back. Make sure you indicate, it's very important so you don't get confused. So these are my patterns, and for the front pattern, this is the center front and this is the side front. So make sure you always indicate them so you don't get confused or mix up. So now I will go ahead and mark out my dart. So for the dart, you go ahead and mark out your bust span. So my bust span is 4 inches. And then from there, I'll come down by 4 inches as well. And I'm going to bring in my rule to connect like this. Then I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides of the dart. 1/2 inch on both sides of the dart, and I'm going to just bring in my rule as well and slant it like this and connect like so. So this is it for the front pattern. Normally I don't cut out this dart, I just fold it in and stitch it up. Then for the back pattern, I'll bring in the back pattern so draw out the dart as well. Mark out the dart. So for the dart, you also mark out your bust span measurement, and then I will come down by 5 inches like this. Then I'll bring in my rule and also connect. So for the back pattern, I came down by 5 inch. You can come down by 4 inch as well. The same 4 inch I came down with on the front, but I like my dart at the back being deeper. So I'll go on both sides by 1/2 inch and I'll go ahead and connect it like this. So at this point, your patterns are ready. You can go ahead and use this to cut out your fabric if you want to attach this to a gown. And also you can go ahead and just cut out the band. The band can be 1 inch, it can be 1.5 inch. You just go ahead and cut it out and use it to cut out your skirt fabric and sew your skirt. But for me, I love adding a little ginger, a little seasoning to it before I actually cut out the band. So let's match on. So for me, I'll just go ahead and add a piece of pattern paper to the waistline and use my sellotape to hold it down like this. So what I love to do is that on the sides, I go up by 1/2 inch from the waistline. So on this back pattern, I'll go up by 1/2 inch at the side from the waistline like this. And I'm just going to bring in my rule and just land this back towards the waistline or back to the waistline. So this is it. It's just very simple. And I will go ahead and just, cut it out. So please watch closely so you don't make any mistake. So that's that for the back pattern. Now I'll go ahead and bring in the front pattern, and I will also add a piece of pattern paper like this, and I'll bring in my tape as well, my sellotape precisely to hold it down. So I use it to hold it down like this. And now that I've done this, I'll also go up on the side of the front pattern by 1/2 inch from the waistline like this. And also to accommodate the belly, I would need to come down by 1/2 inch at the center front like this. And then to connect this back to the 1/2 inch I went up with, I will need to close up the darts by, pinching in my darts and, folding it over like this. Please watch. So I have to close my darts before connecting. Why? Because if I connect without closing my darts, I'm going to have an uneven waistline, and you do not want that. You do not want any form of mistake. So you have to close your dart first. So I've closed my dart like this, as you can see, and I'll go ahead and now bring in the rule and connect the 1/2 inch I went up with at the side to the 1/2 inch I came down with at the center front. So I'll go ahead and do that nicely. So the reason why I love going up by 1/2 inch at the sides is because the sides of the body is slightly raised up when it comes to skirts. So that's the reason why I do go up by 1/2 inch on the sides of my patterns. You get. So you can just decide not to go up by 1/2 inch, but to get a perfect skirt, you need to. So now I have connected and I am cutting this out. Yeah. So now that I have cut this out, it's time to cut out the band. Yeah. So before cutting out the band, you need to indicate your center front and your side front, your center back and your side back, so you don't make any mistake. So for the waistband, I want the waistband to be 1.5 inches wide. You can decide for your waistband to be 1 inch. So I'll just go ahead and start marking 1.5 inches from the waistline like this, as you can see. So that is how wide I want this waistband to be. So I'll go ahead and bring in my rule and I'll go ahead and connect like this. So I'll curve where needs to be curved, and use the straight part for where it needs to be straightened. I don't know if that makes sense. So now I'll go ahead and cut this out. So I'll cut out the waistband. I hope you do understand this part. Don't worry, whatever part confuses you, just let me know in the comment section. Yeah. So now that I have cut this out, next part is to go ahead and close up the dart, because when it comes to waistband, there is no dart on a waistband, so you have to close up that dart. Because have you seen any waistband with a dart? No, so you have to close up the dart. So now that I have this, I'll bring in the back pattern now to cut out the waistband. So don't forget to indicate the side back and the center back. It's very, very important. And if possible, draw an arrow to indicate the part of the waistband that is going downward, and the part that is upward. So now that I've indicated the necessary parts, I am coming down with 1.5 inches. So that is how wide I want my waistband to be, like I earlier stated. And I'll bring in my rule to connect this dot to get a nice curve or line like this. So now that I have done this, I will go ahead and cut my waistband out, cut the waistband out like this. So after cutting this out, I need to close up the dart. Like I earlier stated, waistband do not have dart. Hold your ears. Waistband do not have dart. So you go ahead and close it. Make sure you close the darts on your waistband. So now that I've closed it up, at this point, if you want your waistband to, if you want to cut out your waistband like this, no problem. But if you want your waistband to be, long, without no joining at the sides, just the joining will be at the center back, then you will have to bring your waistband like this at the sides. Make sure the side front and the side backs are lying on each other like this, or are close to each other like this. The sides should be directly opposite each other. You see the way I'm placing it, then you go ahead and use your tape to hold it together. So this is it. This is the waistband. So you can see that I glued it at the sides of the front and the side of the back. That is where I glued them together. So at this point, my pattern is ready. So right now I'm going to show you the allowance you'll be leaving. So this is the center front, and make sure you indicate so you don't get confused. So I'm going to, go ahead and show you the allowance you would leave and how you cut it. So this top part will be on fold. This symbol represents on fold. I don't know if you can see this. Then on this part, you'll be leaving 0.5 inch allowance. That is half an inch sewing allowance. Then this center front here will also be on fold. And of course, for the center back, you'll be leaving 1 inch for zipper allowance. Yes, 1 inch for zipper allowance. So that is that for the waistband. So I'll go ahead and bring in the pattern. So take note of the parts that should be on fold. On fold meaning there should be no opening. Then the part with the allowance, you can, leave the opening. So this is the back pattern. So on the waistline, you'll be leaving half an inch allowance. On the center back, you'll be leaving 1 inch for zipper allowance on this center back. Then on the side back, you can go ahead and leave 2 inches or 1 inch, depending on how many inches you want to leave for your sewing allowance, for the side seams. So for me, I normally make use of 2 inches, so I wrote 2 inches there. Then on the knee length, if you want your skirt longer than this, you can go ahead and make it longer, and then add your aiming allowance. You can make use of 1 inch for your aiming allowance. It depends on what you want. It depends, just cut out the length you want and add your aiming allowance. Then for the center front, it will be on fold, meaning no opening at the center front. Then the waistline, you'll be leaving half an inch for sewing allowance on the waistline. Then also for the length or the knee length, you add 1 inch for aiming allowance, and for the side front, you had 2 inch for your sewing allowance, your side seam. So that is it. So if you enjoyed this video and if this video was helpful to you and you're yet to hit the subscribe button, like, guy, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button and you know you will enjoy it here, I assure you. So I'll be dropping the link to the sewing video once I upload the video. I'll drop the link on the comment section and make sure I pin it. So see you on my next video. Love ya. Mwah.